do send in your stories of things that worked, but also of things that didn't work, because it's helpful. Now, one thing that does work, I believe, is the Boys and Girls Club. And Mary Alice McKenzie is the executive director of the Boys and Girls Club in Greater Burlington. She's worked with former task force aimed at cutting off gang activity, working with members, law enforcement, child welfare, communities. But what Marcel and I've seen, we've gone by, I've lost count a number of times, we've gone by the Boys and Girls Club in Burlington. We've seen her take young people, and young people who many times, because of where they live or their families or the situation, could have been at great risk, and work at them to
thank them.
Will the three of them please raise their hands so we can see where they are? Oh, great. Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Now, as you know, because you've been so good to all of us at the Boys and Girls Clubs around the state, we are all different. We are smaller than others. Some are bigger, some are smaller. We may serve slightly different age groups, but we have a common mission. And our mission is to inspire and enable youth in our communities, especially those who need us most, to realize their full potential as productive, healthy, caring, and responsible citizens. And so although we may differ in our political views, the size of our communities, the way we deliver our services, we are in solidarity with each other on how to execute our mission. And we have all independently, quite frankly, concluded that because of what we are witnessing in our community around addiction, that we cannot not engage. Because if we don't engage on pushing back on the trends that we see, we will violate our reason for being. So we have engaged in slightly different ways, but we have all engaged. We agree with each other that the trends are really quite bad. The trends have gotten worse over the last decade. But we also believe that if we take coordinated and comprehensive community actions, we can make the difference. And so we are doing different things based on what our community needs. In Burlington, we started getting very concerned about what we were witnessing in our neighborhoods about 3 years ago. We started seeing evidence of trafficking in a way that we hadn't seen in my lifetime. I'm a native. I've lived in Burlington my entire life. I've never seen anything. Never thought I was going to see what I've been seeing in the neighborhoods. Most importantly, and of most concern, were the things that children were telling us. Now, at the Boys and Girls Club, we serve children from the ages of 5 through 19, so we truly are talking about children and youth. And we had children telling us that they were afraid to walk home at night, afraid to walk across the park, afraid to walk down North Street to their family apartment. They told us of being followed, harassed, and assaulted by those under the influence of drugs. 13 and 14-year-old children telling us that they had been approached by people who were living in their neighborhood to carry backpacks or to serve as lookouts. 15, 16-year-old girls told us of being offered money for sex by the same people who were selling drugs in their neighborhoods. We started having to make more and more reports to DCF about children who were being severely neglected because there was no food in the home, because there was no money left for food to feed these children. We learned very disturbingly of access being made to middle school-aged girls in exchange for drugs. We heard about guns, and we heard about gang affiliations. Now, all of these things didn't happen all at once. They were spread over a period of time, and we found ourselves making more and more reports. And then we looked at ourselves around the staff meeting table and said, we can make all the reports in the world, all the mandated reports to the police, to DCF, to parents, and it's not enough. Simply making reports and expecting somebody else to fix the problem isn't going to fix the problem. And so we started to dig in and trying to find out, what could we do? What did we have control over? What actions could we take to make it better in our community. We reached out to a number of people in positions of authority and people who had access to educational resources, because after all, we're not the first community walking this path. Many communities have walked this path before. We contacted Boys and Girls Club of America. They sent their director of delinquency and gang prevention to Burlington for 3 days to take a look at the situation, to do training, to leave us with educational materials and some tools that we could implement to try to get at how bad was the problem. Because quite frankly, we weren't sure how bad the problem we were dealing with was. This was an invaluable source of help for us. We were also made aware of a particular grant that could have helped us with some startup funds. However, when we received the invitation to apply, we realized that we didn't qualify because the grant was written for a much larger urban area. And so that was a disappointment, but rather than say, okay, well, we can't do anything because we're underfunded, we reached back out to somebody more local. We reached out to the United Way, and in particular, Martha Maxim, who has been an absolutely incredible support for us. And together with the United Way, we decided we're doing two things. We partnered with Tris Coffin and his group around the opiate effect panels to educate our community about the problem. And we also started looking for flexible funding, which thankfully we were able to find. And so we used the money to contract and collaborate with Spectrum. Again, a knowledgeable source, Spectrum Youth Services, in the business of treatment, to work with us to say, what are the best practices? How do we create a culture of health as opposed to a culture of addiction? They're right in our backyard, and Spectrum and the Boys and Girls Club have said, you know, Boys and Girls Club, if you don't do your job well, the addicted youth are going to end up with Spectrum. So let's come together and use what we both know to improve the chances for at-risk kids. We also contacted the Burlington Police Department, and our incredible Chief of Police, Mike Sherling, was right there with training and educational services and resources for us. Most important, we started listening to our kids in a very different way. We all have a tendency to lecture kids. We all have a tendency to tell them what they should do. I think often we don't just ask them, what do you think and what do you need? We surveyed, and we are still surveying our kids on a very methodical basis. We have held focus groups and panels, individual conversations. I myself have talked to hundreds and hundreds of kids, and they have told us a lot. They have told us, if you talk to me in high school about drugs, it's way too late. I smoked, or my friends smoked their first joint when they were 8, or they were 9, or they were 10. Pick a number. It's incredibly young. It's shockingly young. If you tell me just say no to drugs, or if you tell me if I do drugs I'm going to die, that's a joke to me, because I know people who bring drugs to school, they bring drugs to parties, they do drugs, and nobody I know has died yet. So don't just tell me if I do drugs I'm going to die. If you only tell me about drugs when I'm in health class in high school, that's also a joke to me, because it's a check off the box exercise. If you think that I am serious, then treat me seriously, is what they're saying. They're saying, tell me the facts. Tell me what drugs do to my brain. What do drugs do to my looks? What do drugs do to my prospects? Give me the facts. Take me seriously. These messages are coming from all different kinds of kids, rich, poor, middle class, natives of Vermont, from places far away, but they are common messages. Now, there is a different set of messages, and they are much more complex from the kids who are most at risk. who I believe, and the rest of the clubs believe, they are in the minority. However, as we all know, the minority can affect the majority. These are children that we really don't talk much about because we don't know how to deal with them in Vermont. We all see the news when people are arrested here for trafficking drugs. They come here, the Bronx, Brooklyn, from Chicago, wherever, and we're mad, we're outraged that they bring these substances here and prey on the vulnerable. But what we don't talk about is that these people and people like them have been coming in and out of Vermont for a very long time. And they have extensive networks here, and they have relationships here, and they have born children here. And their children, and the children who are born into the households who are highly addicted, are the most at-risk children in our community. And we don't have many tools in our toolbox for intervening early and effectively. Unfortunately, the only tool that we've had in our toolbox is to arrest and incarcerate when they reach a level of criminality that we can no longer ignore them. These are among the children who need us most, and we must confront this issue. And I do know that the issues are very complicated. They involve confidentiality rules and philosophies, prosecutorial, judicial, defense bar, legislative ideologies that are very uncomfortable to challenge. But we believe that we must address the needs of these children, or they are going to be Vermont's next-gen inmates, something none of us want. Thankfully, the majority of our youth are not that complicated in figuring out how to help them. They have told us what they want. They want safe parks. They want safe streets. They want places to go on Saturday nights. They want more team sports, and they want clarity about the rules of health and safety. At the Boys and Girls Clubs, we are listening, we have done soul searching, we have taken some actions. In Burlington, we looked at our park across the street from our main site. There's a small rundown storage building. We asked the mayor of our city if we could take it over. He said, absolutely, bring it on. We found a private donor. We are taking the building over, renovating it, and turning it into an academic center. Not only will we be able to serve more kids more deeply, but we will improve the safety profile of the entire neighborhood. We have adopted the United Way language around drug abuse and prevention. And we have adopted their goal, which is that all children and youth are free from addiction and its consequences. And we walk the talk, which is incredibly hard, because walking the talk means that youth who you're trying desperately to save, if they continue to participate in illegal and destructive behaviors, then they have to be removed from the Boys and Girls Club. This is very hard to do, but we have done it. We have done it after a lot of soul searching. As a result, more youth are coming to us because they believe that we are going to provide safety for them. We have increased our transportation capacity, so we are bringing kids home after dark if they need a ride. We have opened our club on Saturday nights. We have found more ways to get more kids in the club right after school during the high-risk hours between 3 and 6 o'clock. We've increased all of our programming, including our academics and our team sports. We serve dinners 6 nights a week. It takes funding to be able to do this. We would not be able to do what we're doing without our board of directors, who also sees the challenges of addiction in the community and has said, we must do what we must do. And so we will find the funding. We must find this funding to be sustainable, and we're not there yet on all the efforts, but we are resolved to getting there. So some of these things are not rocket science, they're really boots on the ground kind of action, but we think that for our community, this is what's needed. Now, every club is doing the same or similar things. In Rutland, Larry Bale is actively participating with Project Vision. Beth Baldwin Page is working with their local police in Brattleboro so that there's a coordinated response to any incident involving a child or youth. In Virgins, Mike has long been known as a leader in delivering prevention programs. There's also serious mentoring going on for other communities who want something like a club or a Boys and Girls Club. Larry Bale is mentoring the communities of Randolph and Lyndonville right now because we all recognize that we individually and collectively have to do our part. I think the good work that's been done so far is obviously early stage, and quite frankly, I think it's the easy work that's been done. The hard task is ahead of us, and that is creating a unified front on all fronts. Prevention, intervention, including treatment and suppression. And I want to close by one thing. I know that I've been talking about prevention measures and real boots on the ground kind of strategies, but I have to say that coordinated and well done law enforcement really, really matters. In Burlington, when the U.S. Attorney's Office, the federal agencies, Burlington Police, under the leadership of Mike Sherling, all started working together, we noticed our neighborhoods did get more safe. And we have to remember that. It can't all be on their shoulders. We all have to do our work, but we have to allow them to do their work too, because without them, we don't have a chance. So I want to thank you so very much for allowing me to testify.
Well, thank you very much. You and I have had the privilege of being at